Greetings, JJK community. So the translated version of Jujutsu Kaisen Chapter 258 has finally been released. Let's hop onto the discussion of the latest chapter because this one is absolutely unexpected. Later in the video, you'll see way too many revelations, especially twists, because Yuji's spotlight may end in this chapter, and I know you didn't anticipate such developments. After all, the hype in the last episode hinted that Yuji might do more exciting black flashes, which I will warn you right now is unfortunately not what would happen. The first page brings us back to the narrator's note in chapter 255, reminding us of the old speculation that if Gojo's reverse curse technique returns after his second black flash, the same should happen to Sukuna too. However, we know that the recent chapters show no sign of that predicament, as Sukuna is still in a weakened state and isn't able to regenerate his injuries. The narrator also mentions this and adds that the sole reason for that is due to Yuji smashing Sukuna with 7 black flashes, all of which directly struck the boundary between the King of Curses and Megumi's soul. As expected, Yuji's attacks are the main reason why Sukuna is still nerfed, and we got to hand him. Our boy deserves the praise. Same with the spoilers, however. The number of black flashes Yuji hit in the translation remains at 7, even though it was evident that Yuji has hit a total of 8 black flashes ever since the final pages of chapter 256. I thought it would change here in the translated chapter, but maybe the 7 black flashes refer only to the ones shown in 257. Honestly, I think accurate numbers are important for recording purposes, but Sukuna receives the bitter taste of those black smashes either way. Therefore, it's all good in the end. The scene then shifts to LaRue and Miguel as they are chilling on the rooftop of some building. I assume that this place is far enough away from the dangers of the battlefield, but still not so distant because we can see Miguel watching the smackdown from afar. The two had a short exchange with Miguel praising LaRue for his splendid deed. After all, it's safe to say that LaRue is one of the main catalysts for Yuji hitting Sukuna with a massive black flash. With that said, it's funny that LaRue says, "Heaven is so close," because he also got hit by Sukuna's strike and is just thankful that he's alive. However, Miguel's reaction to the next thing he saw on the battlefield screams that something is absolutely not good on their side. It is because, to everyone's surprise, what's standing right in front of their eyes is Sukuna's malevolent shrine. We'll get back to the explanation of its form very soon, as I just want to mention the narrator's note here. The king's domain, traveling along the sparks of black, returned to its master. Yes, you heard that right. Sukuna's domain expansion comes back. Keep in mind that the squad's goal is to avoid this catastrophe from happening, because they know that the fight will be more challenging for them at this point. Unfortunately, the narrator explains that Sukuna manages to bring forth his domain expansion again by altering the hand signs required for the technique and utilizing a part of his brain that was unaffected by Gojo's infinite void. This is a smart move by Sukuna because it was difficult for him to perform Enmaten. You know, back in chapter 255, when Choso, Yuji, and Maki are teaming up against Sukuna, the narrator mentioned this. In order to activate the broad targeted world-severing dismantle, the same hand sign used for Malevolent Shrine, Enmaten, was required. Sukuna couldn't activate his domain expansion at that time because, on top of losing one arm, Maki also removed more of them out of the way. That's why we haven't seen the King of Curses using his domain expansion in the recent chapters. However, that ends now. As you can see in this panel, Sukuna's malevolent shrine cuts through the surroundings while maintaining both its output and range. Now the question is, what happened to Yuji, Choso, and the others who are still in the area? Also, did they prepare some sort of a countermeasure to deal with this? A short flashback answers the latter as we are back somewhere in the 1-month time skip. In fact, Hikari starts the meeting with, "Those who want to fight need either the reverse curse technique or anti-domain tactics." Of course, Maki's reply here is reasonable because it is obviously a no-go for her, who has no cursed energy whatsoever. I just can't help but see this as humorous, since it looks like she's out here to annoy Hikari. Either way, Choso is confident that he and his brother will manage when it comes to using the reverse curse technique to regenerate themselves. Yuji seems like he has no idea why his big bro declares that though. As a bit of a mention, I'll just make it clear that Yuji was unable to perform the reverse curse technique at this point in time in the flashback. So, with that said, Choso asks Shoko, Hikari, and Yuta how they deal with blood loss when regenerating their injuries. Apparently, Hikari is on autopilot, slightly similar to Yuta, who goes by instinct. Contrary to those two, however, Shoko reveals her method and goes into a bit more detail as to how she converts cursed energy into blood and more about the type of treatment she does to her patients. Surprisingly, Choso somewhat expected this answer since he has the same method of compensating as Shoko. Also, it is here that he reveals his plan to force Yuji into absorbing their brothers, the cursed wombs. Yuji's body is already suitable for this without transforming into a curse himself. The proof is right there since episode 1 as Yuji can devour Sukuna's fingers, which is, by the way, the king of curses, and be a vessel for him. Therefore, there will be no problem for Yuji to absorb his brothers, thus gaining some cursed techniques as a result. Whoa, this means that Yuji has garnered more abilities on top of the ones we've seen so far, like the Mizushi and blood manipulation. We'll get on that part later because you won't wait for the next chapter to see the addition in Yuji's arsenal. Nonetheless, the primary purpose of this flashback is to introduce the switch training that Yuji underwent. Even the person in question is confused as to what in the world is that though, but this is related to the cheat Yuta mentioned in chapter 250. Ui joins the conversation afterward as the primary key for this new training to attain success. It turns out that his curse technique cannot just teleport nearby targets to a place or person he has previously marked, like what happened in the Shibuya incident arc. It can also swap the souls of two marked individuals. Thus, the switch training will involve Yuji changing souls with someone else, hoping that this process can teach Yuji the skills needed to counter Sukuna's domain once it materializes again. Since we now know he can employ the reverse cursed technique, the only thing left to figure out is who Yuji transferred his soul to. However, a problem still remains, because this whole switch training reminds Yuji of Mahito's body and soul-altering abilities. He is worried that the shape of the persons referring to him and his to-be soul-switching partner, body and soul, will be stretched. After all, if that happens, they can just say goodbye to everything and become existences similar to the victims of Mahito's idol transfiguration. Thankfully, it appears that Ui can flawlessly swap the souls of two persons, so there shouldn't be any cause for concern. Actually, he looks so confident while assuring Yuji that he knows what he's doing. It is at this moment that Kusakabe, out of nowhere, points out Yuji's tremendous growth as a sorcerer. Kusakabe knows the reason behind it and wants to see if Yuji is aware of it too. Hence, he asks the young protagonist, but Yuji blushes as he embarrassingly says, innate talent, which 100% is not the case. Man, Yuji looks disappointed because the whole reason he became so strong despite being a newbie in the world of sorcery just a few hundred chapters ago is his uncle Sukuna all along. Sure, his hard work and determination as a shonen protagonist contribute a lot to it. Still, similar to his fellow main characters, he also gained an unwanted power-up or unfair advantage. Nevertheless, Sukuna's case is related to the principles of switch training, which I will begin to explain now. As you might already know, Yuji's exceptional growth is thanks to the King of Curses living inside his body. Sukuna operates his own technique inside Yuji, which allows the young man's body to remember it like some sort of memory. Take biking, for example. Once your body memorizes the process, it'll be a bit easier to do the next time. Now, I know it might be a lousy example, but please bear with me. Kusakabe wants to incorporate the same principles into the switch training. Put simply, Kusakabe will swap with Yuji first. He'll then hammer his cursed energy manipulation and the foundational barrier technique simple domain into Yuji's body. Apparently, a certain binding vow prevents the simple domain from being taught to the outsiders of the new Shadow School. But fortunately, Mei Mei has pulled the strings, and now there's no underlying issue in this regard. Even so, according to Ui Ui, the limit for swapping souls is only twice per person in a single month. Needless to say, they must consider the pairings very wisely, otherwise they can ruin the chance since they only have 1 month to prepare before the Shinjuku showdown. That said, it is definitely exciting to see who more sorcerers Yuji swapped souls within that timeline, since it's probable that Kusakabe wasn't the only person who played the role of Yuji's partner. Well, I am curious about who you think they are, so leave your thoughts in the comments section after this review ends. Also, it is obvious that I didn't dive too much into details regarding Kusakabe's technique earlier, and that is because the story continues with Yuji using the new Shadow style, Simple Domain, as a defensive barrier to counter Sukuna's domain expansion. Yuji is standing so near the Malevolent Shrine that he notices just by taking a close look at it that Sukuna's domain is incomplete. This is probably because Sukuna is still nerfed. Furthermore, maybe not using the required hand signs and simply improvising by alternating the method causes the Malevolent Shrine to burst forth in its imperfect state. There are more revelations about Sukuna's weakened domain expansion, and we will get into that later on. For now, this new info confirms that, despite the never-changing high output it emits, Yuji and the others can last until the Malevolent Shrine dissipates. The narrator supports Yuji's observation, as it turns out that Sukuna's domain expansion hasn't been formed completely. True, he sent countless wide-scale slashes comparable to what Sukuna had shown us in Shibuya. On the flip side, it allows him to seize Maki, who has no cursed energy, in his domain. It is still thanks to Yuji's consecutive black flashes that Sukuna is unable to maintain his high-level domain. So here comes the part that every fan who wants Sukuna to be defeated is waiting. In 99 seconds, the King of Curses' Malevolent Shrine will collapse. Approximately over 1 minute and a half, everyone in the area must endure the ongoing slashes like their lives depend on it. After all, it actually is. Yuji, Maki, Ino, and Choso persist against the consecutive slashes, hoping it will end soon. We can also see Choso being so worried about his little brother to the point that he screams, "Yuji," even though he is also at the receiving end of Sukuna's fatal slashes. Unfortunately, the situation just turned from worse to worse afterward. The visible cracks in the next panel show the destruction of Yuji's simple domain, which means that he has to face the attacks from Malevolent Shrine without a defensive barrier. So after enduring the slashes head-on, Yuji loses his left foot and flies at a distance as he gets struck away by Sukuna's attacks. Ironically, even after bidding farewell to one of his feet, Yuji stands up again as he notices that the slashes have finally stopped. Of course, this gives him hope since it means that they endured the threat of the Malevolent Shrine, and so far the casualties confirmed are only Yuji's body parts. There might be more not shown in this chapter yet, but for now, the group manages to withstand Sukuna's attacks. Or maybe it's not a happy cliffhanger as we thought. In the next moment, Yuji's wide-open eyes witness Sukuna activating one of his techniques. The chapter then ends with the King of Curses chanting, "Furnace, open." After all this time, we can finally witness more fire-based destruction from Sukuna again. Honestly, I share the same opinions as the majority in the Jujutsu Kaisen community. Just who can stop Sukuna now? Of course, that question will be answered as the series goes on. I'm curious to see how they will deal with the current situation, especially now that Yuji lost his left foot. Naturally, it will become more challenging for them to defeat Sukuna at this point, but who knows? Maybe we'll have another Yuji hype chapter, or someone will steal the spotlight very soon. What do you think? Let me know your theories in the comments section below. There will be a break next week, so we must wait a few more days before getting the answers we need. Nevertheless, thank you for watching the video. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button if you enjoyed the entire review. That's all for now, and see you on the next one.